Industrial Revolution brought about significant changes to society, including new innovations and technologies that transformed the way people lived, worked, and built. In response to these changes, two distinct styles emerged: the arts and crafts movement and the modern movement. How could two movements that had such different views about the innovations of the era and the ways of building and living have so much in common? Despite the progress brought about by the Industrial Revolution, there was a segment of society that remained dissatisfied, arguing that it resulted in the uglification of cities. Some intellectuals of the time expressed concerns about the decline of moral values that were associated with the Middle Ages, while others were worried about the decreasing artistic standards of manufactured goods since trained designers were not involved in their mass production. These two issues became central to the arts and crafts movement, which gained momentum between 1850 and 1900 in Britain and later in America. John Ruskin is credited with creating the arts and crafts ideals that associated high moral values with certain historical styles like the Gothic architecture. His book, The Seven Lamps of Architecture, published in 1849, laid out the principles of great architecture that influenced the younger generation of philosophers, designers, architects, and craftsmen. William Morris, who was influenced by Ruskin, became a prominent figure in the arts and crafts movement. He was a designer, craftsman, and the leader of the movement in England. Morris and Philip Webb collaborated on the design of the Red House in Bexley Heath, which was created to meet Morris's high standards of design. The Red House was the first arts and crafts building, and the most influential one over the next decades. The concept and furnishing works are a result of collaboration between architect and artists. The house presents some aspects that reflects the ideals of the movement. The neo-Gothic style combined to practical rationality and the local building traditions shows a space planned from the inside to the outside that meet the needs of everyday family life. The building was made in red brick structure, carefully chosen to give variation of color and avoid any impression of mechanical perfection. Medieval domestic vernacular characteristics are also present, such as vertical proportions, steeply pitched roofs, pointed arches, and asymmetry. The interior has a large number of handcrafted furniture designed by Morris, Webb, and other artists, including table glass, metalworks, stained glass in the leaded lights of the corridors, wallpaper, and murals with embroidered hangings using colored motifs inspired in the nature. Morris's experience in planning and building the Red House led him to establish a company called Morris, Marshall, Faulkner and Company. The company provided a space where artist craftsmen could create a range of items including wallpaper, textiles, stained glass, utensils, furniture, and carpets using handcraft techniques. Morris's company was the first attempt to address the low quality of manufactured goods and the inhuman aspects of the Industrial Revolution. The popularity of Red House among the professionals existed because of the admiration for Morris and his company to support Ruskin's ideals about changefulness and how the building has to adapt to the people needs, and finally for the Webb's rejection of the rigid academic styles in architecture. Some believe Nikolaus Pevsner's view on his book Pioneers of the Modern Movement from 1936. He says that the arts and crafts was antecedent of the modernism and contributed to the idea of a new functionalist and simplistic aesthetics. The Steiner House is one of most significant and well-known works from the architect Loos because of the advanced modernity of form that it presents. Some aspects such as functional coherence, the absence of ornaments, spatial economy, use of flat roof on the garden side, and the reduction of the external image into simple shell have influenced the stylistic revolution of the post-war years architecture. His work is not a result of a process of abstraction but a new proposition of building techniques that have been traditionally tested. For example, the house was plastered with lime mortar like the old Viennese houses and the curved sheet metal roof drawn from the local historical building culture. Therefore, the innovative character of his work derives from an analytical reflection on history and not from the denial of it. For Loos, the modifications of the traditional way of building were only permitted if they represent an improvement. The house was built in the same year as his essay Architecture was written, which reveled a solid theoretical basis of his style. It presented antitheses such as between monument and house, art and useful objects, private and public, inside and outside, rational and irrational. The architect developed a series of conceptual antinomies that could be defined as a manifestation of the language of difference. The facades are the public part of the house, and the lack of ornamentation marks it as an economy utilitarian object. The face looking onto the garden has a classical balance between voids and solids with respect to an axis of bilateral symmetry. It contrasts with the face aligned to the St. Vitus that has dissymmetrical openings of different sizes, and the two lateral faces asymmetrically arranged to best serve the interior spaces. The exterior is covered in stucco, a type of plaster used for covering walls or ceilings, used as protective skin over the bricks. Therefore, the choice of materials is answering logical reasons and function, also reflecting economy from making use of the quality intrinsic to the material. The coolness of the facades contradicts the warmth of the internal spaces, and the reason lies on the theoretical need to distinguish and separate the public sphere to the private one. The exterior belongs to the city, and the interior belongs to the individual. The internal articulation of spaces is planned with intentional contrast to the external volumetric distribution. The inconsistency of design between the various faces of the house complies with the logic that the openings are arranged according to their functions within the interior and their relationship with the exterior space. For Loos, the interior of a house should be welcoming and livable. Walls separate the individual from the social, impacting the memories and experiences that the users could have. For this reason, the living room occupies the entire raised ground floor in an open plan that includes the main functions of the domestic life: eating, talking, playing, and listening to music. The auxiliary spaces like kitchen, laundry, garage, and others are in the basement and second floor, revealing different levels of privacy within the dwelling and the rigor of the function. The arts and crafts and the modernism movements share many similarities and differences in their approach to design, function, and materials. Despite the differences, it is possible to understand the significant role played by arts and crafts in shaping the functionalist and simplistic aesthetics of early modernism. The similarities and influences between these two movements demonstrate how design movements are constantly evolving and building upon each other's ideas.